Welcome to the Town Board Workshop Meeting, Thursday, March 3rd. Please rise and salute the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The emergency exits are to my right, behind the town attorney, and also the door you came in. Roll, please.
Councilman Galango?
Here.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Here.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Here.
Councilwoman Doyle noted as absent. Supervisor Prodi?
Here. We'll start with a Silo Ridge easement presentation.
Is this on? There you go. Okay. Hello? Okay, perfect. So I would like to provide the board a little update on the project as we stand. The New York State DEC permits were received last week, I believe Thursday last week. We also received the final stamped and permits from Dutchess County Health Department. With those few permits in hand, then the planning board yesterday was able to act on stamping the final site plan documents. So we're encouraged now that we can start construction on the project. We're looking forward to doing so. At the same time, we're still working diligent towards the subdivision plat being finalized. All the plats are done. Milers are being signed also by the Dutchess County Health Department. We've been able to work through all the easements, and with the final document, I believe is the HOA document, which both the town attorney and planning board attorney are still working on it, and the conservation easement. We were hoping to have the final conservation easement be ready to be submitted to the town board tonight. Unfortunately, the planning board consultants, together with the planning board, have been going back and forth on changes and modifications they're still looking into doing. So what I felt it would be prudent today, rather than submitting the document, would be to give you a presentation on how, what the two easements we're looking at, what they entail. I have a map that I can provide the board, so at least they get a picture of what's going to be under easement and what each easement is going to entail. And our goal is, we have a planning board meeting next week. If all those issues will be resolved, then what I would like to do is send it by email and hopefully be able to provide each town board member a hard copy by Thursday next week, so they can start reviewing those easements in the future. So let me, if I may, can I bring you, so there's a small copy of I'll bring it in. So as you may know, we've been working diligent with North American Land Trust. They made a presentation to the planning board, I think 2 meetings ago. The North American Land Trust is one of the largest conservation easement organizations, or I think the largest in the United States. They hold over 100,000 acres in conservation easement nowadays. And one of the good things with them is not only have they done conservation easements or what we normally see here, but they've also worked with development, so they understand the intricacies and what to look on, make sure that the easement is protected in perpetuity. One of the things that we discussed was doing 2 easements. One easement which will cover the natural areas. On the map that you have there, the natural areas essentially are the solid areas. Those are areas that won't be subject to any construction. It's also going to be a much more restrictive area because mostly entails all the woodlands and natural wetlands and so forth. A baseline has been prepared for that property, and that easement will be recorded up front. A second easement, which will be an easement which will cover both the golf course, open space, as well as the public overlook. That easement, we call it the maintain / and there also has a couple of dark gray areas. Those are what we call restored. Those are areas that, because the golf course is still in the construction, and two, there's still construction going to be happening over the next year, it's impossible for NALT to do a baseline up front and be able to record that easement. So what we're doing is the easement's going to be negotiated up front. It's going to be signed and agreed upon. Ultimately, we'll be placed in escrow with the town, and then be recorded upon time that the improvements have been finished. We've been discussing, is it just the completion of the improvements, or also a time requirement? I think, it's going to be the combination of both. Our goal is for all those improvements to be done, completed this year, so that the easement can be recorded as well. That easement, of course, because it has a golf course, has the public overlook and utilities and so forth, is a little more flexible in what can be done versus the natural one, which is extremely restrictive, essentially just for trails, and that's it, pretty much. Right now it looks, we have a total of the required open space that needs to go under easement will be done, which is a total of 535 acres. Upon, whenever and when we apply for phase 2, which are essentially the vineyard cottages and the winery building, most likely additional acre will also go into conservation easement. But from the beginning, we meet the open space requirement set forth in the zoning law. Not sure if the town board has any questions or comments that they would like to ask. Okay. So we look for, so hopefully we'll have the easement completed by Wednesday next week. We'll send it via email to each one of the town board members and, of course, the town attorney, and we'll send a hard copy to each member. I'll work to try to get each person's addresses to make sure they get them. Okay?
I'm sorry, Pedro, one question.
Sure.
The restored area easements, can you explain that, how that's different than the...
Sure. Restored area easements are area that, for example, if you look at areas that border the roads, there's probably going to be minimus disturbance there, but other areas that then become woodlands. So because they're woodlands and they're going to be part of that, technically moving forward, they should be treated with the same restrictions that the natural area would have. Versus what you have shaded in with lines, that's more open space that will be maintained, either used as a golf course facility or used as the public overlook. So NALT wanted to really define the two easements, where one was very restrictive in what you can use it for, what can be done, and the other one has a little more flexibility. So the goal is, once those disturbances within those areas, mostly are related to utilities, are finished, those get turned into natural state.
Thanks.
Does anybody else have any other questions? None at this time. Well, thank you very much for supplying us with the map and bringing us up to date on the easements.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm here to give credit where credit's due, so to speak.
Could you please state
I
your
would
name?
like
Excuse
to-
me. Could you
Oh.
please state your name and address?
Oh, my name is Lindsley Chappie. I live in 56 Park Drive, Dover Plains, New York. And I was here one time previous and met with all you individuals and expressed my concerns with the Bulfamonte compost project. And I would like to commend the town board and all the constituents for standing up and opposing the Bulfamonte industrial compost proposal. However, let's not forget the importance, and it's very important that we protect our water. It's a viable natural resource that once it's contaminated in any way, shape, or form is irreversible. Our lives depend upon it, and if there's ever any new proposals entertained, this water contamination is most highly probable than not it could become a situation. So I would really appreciate it if you were diligent and stuck behind your decision, and I appreciate everything that you townspeople and the constituents have done. I really had concerns over our water. So I thank you very much for that. You should be applauded for that, really, seriously. I would like to touch on another situation. I really seriously believe, and this goes back to the DDSO, and the DDSO facility in Brooklyn's being closed and has closed, and it's undergoing a renovation process right now at a tune of $1.8 million to accommodate housing for the homeless. As I speak right now, Mary Okoma had it in the paper, spoke of it, and our VA facility in LaGrangeville/Poughkeepsie is no longer accommodating the requirements needed by the VA. It's under capacity, and they're looking for another location. And I really seriously feel that the DSO in Wassaic, Amenia, which is in your jurisdiction, the town of Amenia, would become a viable resource to accommodate the Veterans Clinic. And I would like to see people in power in the town reach out to our county executive, Mike Molinaro, or Ron Hicks, Sue Serino, our state senator, and Dee Dee Barrett. Dee Dee Barrett has expressed concerns that this could be a viable resource that could be used to its fullest capacity, which it isn't now. So I'd really like to have somebody check that out. Maybe it's not on priority one at this time, but I think it'd be a viable resource for the town to have a VA clinic there. It would create jobs. It would also accommodate adjacent towns, Sharon, Cornwall, Washington, New Milford. They've all expressed, because I'm a VA combat veteran myself, Vietnam combat veteran, and I use the VA. And the VA is more accommodating in the area here than it is going all the way to West Haven. So I'd really appreciate you giving that some thought, and I wish you a good evening. I really do. Thank you very much.
I'd like to point out to you that our county legislator, Sandy Washburn, is here. She can introduce herself to you.
Hello, baby. How are
And
you?
you could, she'd love to hear about what what you're proposing.
Oh, thank you very much. So maybe we can talk. You want to sit? And then you pass it to your neighbors? So how can you
I'm Sharon Kroger. Firstly, I want to thank the board for the hard work that it did in the last meeting. This wasn't easy. And you did the right thing. You voted 4-1 not to consider the Buffalmonte project. There were two good reasons, each of which is totally valid in itself. One of them was because this town has spent many years in developing a master plan and then comprehensive plan, meeting after meeting, year after year, trying to get to the point where it developed what is known as one of the best comprehensive plans in the state for a small town. And you secured and revalidated that plan with your vote, which was very important. The other very good reason to have done what you did was because of the unique nature of this particular aquifer, which behaves a little bit like a reservoir itself. People are drinking right out of it. The springs out at the several wells for these populated areas, some of whose people were here, and you saw them all last meeting. That is a unique drinking source. It is not just groundwater. It's a unique aquifer. And one of the people who has dramatized this, I think some of you will remember, that our own Norm Benson, who lives here in Amenia, and who became the key county water person for the county for years and years, his description of this is that it's pristine water, and it's only 5 or 6 feet below the surface at that point in the aquifer. So you've got these populations just 3,000 feet below, southward from the location where Mr. Villafanti wanted to develop his project. And they were acutely concerned with that, and they described that, and I just wanted the board to realize that it was very valid for them to have taken the position that they took. Therefore, any future proposals, whether they be small or maybe perhaps demonstrations of that kind, are still the same thing and should not take place, and that I want you to be consistent and continue to take the position you've taken, even if something very interesting comes up that looks technologically sophisticated. Now, having said that, I do want to say that Mr. Moon, the expert that came with Mr. Buffamonte from the state of Washington, definitely is showing unique technical sophistication in those proposals. It's not that this is not good stuff. If you have to do it, you do it somewhere, that's the way to do it. But this is not the place to try to do it. And I just want you to be consistent, and I thank you very much.
Okay, is there any other public comment?
Could I reiterate one thing?
You certainly can.
Excuse me, really, I didn't mention it before. Bethpage, Long Island, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, green compost is having a real bad time of it. It turned out to be something to the magnitude of Flint, Michigan. And I just wanted to say that we don't need another Flint, Michigan, and we don't need another Bethpage, so, in Long Island. So I really like to see us protect our water. I really would. Thank you very much.
Is there any other public comment? Supervisors report. The ambulance, Wassaic and Amenia Ambulance Committees met at 6:30 and had discussions with Mobile Lights, which is an ambulance services provider. We had met previously with Northern Dutchess Paramedic. Both companies have been given all the data from the amount of calls from Amenia and Wassaic, and we're able to take that information and extrapolate it and put it into graphs and explain to us what types of contracts might be available to us. We're just in information gathering mode right now to see what types of contracts there are out there and which, so we can make a decision to see what's the best fit for Amenia and Wassaic. They were very technical and had some information that was confidential to the company, which is why we didn't open it to the public or to the press, because it wouldn't have been fair to the company to do that with one open it and not open it to another company. We're still fact-finding. We're still trying to put the numbers together and decide whether, we want to go ahead with the ambulance district or another model. There are several models that that can be put together to provide ambulance services. This is a very complex issue. Ambulance service is very highly regulated by the Department of Health, EMS services, and the state. So it's something we're getting all the information we can in order to make an informed decision. Town clerk.
We just have so much more. Good evening. I'd like to begin this evening's report with the tax collector's report. The town has been satisfied in full. Total taxes for the town, the highway, and the special districts were remitted to the town supervisor in the amount of $2,650,466.21. So, and to date, the office has collected $4,253,036.02. So we're almost there with the conclusion of tax collection. So anyone that has not paid their town taxes, that is not through escrow, I would like to remind you that you are still responsible to pay your taxes. They are, the next time that they're due with the town clerk's office with the 2% penalty will be March 31st. If you have any questions regarding your bill, you haven't still received your bill, or you'd like to know how you can pay, please call the office 373-8860 extension 125, and we'll gladly give you your information. The minutes for February 18th have been circulated to the board, as well as notes for the March 1st meeting that was scheduled that did not take place. I've remitted to the town supervisor this month $194 for the monthly share. Also at this time, with regret, I need to announce that Valerie Kulikowski has submitted her resignation effective March 8th. Congratulations on her new job. Unfortunately, I just can't offer the hours or the salary. So congratulations to Valerie and best wishes. Also with that, and proposing to the board, I'd like to hire Tara Mori as the clerk for that 10 hours. The good news is that the grant has come in, the parts of the equipment have come in, the scanner and the computer are here. I'd be implementing Tara into those hours, filling in the scanning and keeping up with all of the behind-the-scenes work, and Nancy will continue to do the day-to-day interactions with the customer service Monday through Thursday.
So she will be paid from grant money, or is that not
it's
just covering the
Valerie's
equipment?
hours. I mean,
Okay, right,
it's
okay.
the 10 hours.
So that's the archival project,
That's
that
the
we're
archival.
putting our records online?
Yes.
Okay. And it'll be shared with the rest of the
With-
6 towns?
Well, it's going to be Beekman, Town of Dover, Amenia, and Town of Northeast.
Great.
So
That's
we're
great.
We're really excited. The reason why I'm asking so quickly that we go ahead and hire Tara is because on Tuesday, we're having our training class down in Dover with Linda Bull from New York State Archives. And they're having, the meetings just so that way everybody can get in, and I need to catch up Tara up to speed ASAP because the equipment's here and we're ready to get started. So we can do all the motions and we'll come back. Also in your packets this evening, the supervisors provided copies of last year's mowing bids. It's that time of year, so we need to start thinking about that
Actually, it's the one for next year, Leah.
for this year. So,
This year.
and that's all that's going to require action. So if we could tackle those 2 items, the minutes and then the employment change, before I continue with my report.
I make a motion that we authorize the February 18th, 2016 minutes that got the corrections that we requested earlier.
I'll second.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Aye.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
And then the resignation of Valerie and the hiring of Tara.
I'll make a motion that we hire Tara Mori for...
We need to accept, I'm sorry,
Accept her
First one.
resignation.
accept the resignation first.
Make a motion that we accept the resignation of Tara Mori.
No,
Oh,
Valerie.
Valerie.
Sorry, Valerie Kulikowski, sorry. Sorry, Tara. And that we hire, can I do that in 2 motions, or in 1 motion?
I think we're going to have to do it in 2 separate because we're accepting her resignation not only as clerk in the town clerk's office, but also as bank reconciliation clerk for the bookkeeper. So we need to accept her resignation from both positions.
And bank clerk?
So her titles just were deputy town clerk, deputy
She was,
tax collector, and deputy vital register of statistics. So she was all three. So we need to do, and bank reconciliation.
bank reconciliation clerk for the bookkeeper.
She was the vital statistics, how do you say that again?
Deputy
The deputy?
register.
Register.
Registrar.
Registrar of vital statistics. Okay, I'm ready now. I make a motion that we accept Valerie Kolakowski's resignation as the deputy town clerk, the deputy tax collector, our bank reconciliation person for our bookkeeper, and the deputy registrar of vital statistics.
Second.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger,
Aye.
Councilman Delango,
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle,
Yes.
and Supervisor Prodi.
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion that we hire Tara Maury at $15.45 as our deputy town clerk,
We're gonna, her title is clerk.
as a clerk for 10 hours a week.
Second.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger,
Aye.
Councilman Delango,
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle,
Yes.
and Supervisor Prodi.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to advertise for a bank reconciliation clerk for the bookkeeper.
Second it?
Councilwoman Hitzelberger,
Aye.
Councilman Delango,
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle,
Yes.
Supervisor Prodi.
Yes.
And I'll need authorization to advertise for the mowing bids.
Make a motion that we authorize the town clerk to advertise the mowing bid specs in the local paper.
Second.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger,
I just wanted to finish reading them first.
oh, sorry.
They're the same as last year, nothing has changed.
Yeah, I was trying to remember if we had any issues last year that we wanted to address.
Not that I know of.
Not weed removal or anything like that, wasn't a problem.
This last year, we added removing the leaves from the cemetery, and whatever we did have issues with, we already added.
Okay. Aye.
Councilman Delango,
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle,
Yes.
Supervisor Prodi.
Yes.
And I'd like to also remind bidders out there that tonight's a big advertisement for bids. The concession stand for Beacon Park is also available to be bid on. Specs are available in the town clerk's office during regular hours. Just as a reminder to the board, earlier this week I circulated some information regarding recreation. If everybody could please take the time to look at that information. I was asked if the board members have received them. I can just say yes, I circulated them. So if anybody would like to reach out and talk to the individuals and have any follow-up questions, or at least acknowledge receipt, it'd be appreciated. As I promised I would ask.
Did we authorize you to advertise for the concession?
Last month.
Last month we
It's
did
already in
that.
the paper
Okay,
and on TV and the website.
okay.
So that's all done, yes. And on some good positive notes, I'd like to congratulate our Amenia Recreation Cheer Team for the last 2 competitions that they've been in. They've placed first in all 3 teams, and they're going to be on their way to U.S. Finals in Rhode Island. So good luck to our girls and their continued work and their dedication in supporting and representing Amenia. Great job. And Saturday, March 12th, the Cub Scout Pack 29 will host their annual corned beef cabbage dinner at the Wasake Firehouse, $10 a plate, eat in or take out. So a lot of good happenings here in Amenia and proud.
What are the
sporting-
hours again?
4 to 7, I
4
think.
to 7?
$10 per adults? Is that right?
$10 per plate, yeah.
Yeah. 4 to 7.
He likes to zoom in on our
Oh,
free advertisement here for our
Absolutely.
local activity.
It's very good.
It's always good food at the Wasake Firehouse.
Dawn, did you also want to mention the pancake breakfast on Sunday?
Okay, so that's going to be the week thereafter, but on our 3rd Sunday, we're going to have our pancake breakfast at the Amenia Firehouse. It'll be March 20th.
No, the one for the VFW this Sunday.
Oh, and then this Sunday, the 6th, the VFW is having their delicious pancake breakfast down in Dover Plains.
And their specialty is they also do mimosas and Bloody Marys with your breakfast. So, well, you know, you guys do the omelets.
I know, and now I can't bring the kids to breakfast.
No, you can. You don't have to get the mimosas and the Bloody.
I
Then you need to teach the kids how to drive.
want working on it. Thank you. I think that was enough tonight.
Okay, the building report. Town board members, please find February's monthly report for the building department as building permits go. We have issued 4 new building permits totaling $1,000. We're continuing with certificate of occupancy searches, and for this month, we did 4 searches, which total $400. And as far as fire inspections go, we did 2 fire inspections, which total $400. The total for the month is $1,800. Are there any other committee reports?
Victoria, back to the building report for 1 minute. What's going on with that collapsed barn across the street on Old 22?
They've been issued a demolition permit, and they were on Monday, NICIC was there to reset the pole because it couldn't be taken down until the electrical was taken off it. So that was done Monday.
So the
And
pole was done?
the pole was supposed to be set on Monday, the last
Because I went by
one.
the building and there's no pole.
Well, it was, NICIC was scheduled to do it on Monday. I haven't been here for the last 2 days, so I'm not sure. So
I'll
you
call
can check.
Mike and find out what's going
Mike.
on. Because
But they have been issued a demolition permit, and
he told me it was issued a demolition permit when we were talking about it, and I actually don't see it on the permit monthly report from February 1st to February 29th. I see 2 demolition permits, one for 25 Depot Hill Road and one for 6 Old Warbed Road. I do not see a demolition permit for Old 22.
well, you can ask them about.
Okay, I'll talk to Mike about it.
This is just February, it might have been March. I don't see any March entries. That was March 1.
But I know the owner is making arrangements with somebody to take it down, and they're working with NICIC.
Yeah, no,
To
Mike
take
sent
care
out
of
an
the
email that the
electrical.
pole was going to be set up on the 29th.
Yeah,
Which was
that's
a
when they were,
Monday.
that's when they were scheduled to do it.
Yeah, and
Last
I
time,
went
yeah.
by there and I didn't see the pole put up.
Okay, well, just check with Mike and see what he
Follow.
says. Okay, any other committee reports? Morris Associates Heating System Bid Specifications. Denise, you've been in touch with Morris Associates about the bids?
I have, the one thing he did mention also was about having the county place this on the Empire BidNet, I think.
They are going to do that.
Yeah. Which would get it out to probably,
Yeah,
more
that's
contractors.
the Empire BidNet. I'm looking into seeing what we need to do to sign the town up, because that gives, that sends the bids out to a wider area. It's the same place that, the same way the county sends their bids out when they're bidding projects. It's like to Albany and Westchester, and it just all over the place.
Pete
So
said
that'll-
he thinks the annual cost is somewhere around $150. So if that's what it is, it's pretty low cost.
Yeah, I have the information.
You
I
do,
haven't put
yeah.
it together yet. I'm looking into it.
Okay.
But as a courtesy to us, the county is going to send our bid out under their contract with Empire Bid this time, until we get set up with them.
So then on the notices, the one change I think would be to just stagger the times of the submission of the bids. You can, I would think maybe if you do the bids for the asbestos removal first at 10, and then maybe change the second one to 10:15, just to stagger them a little bit. And then the second one would be for the heating system project.
And have you received all the,
I received both, and I've received her revised notice to bid.
It's just the time.
Just the time.
Just the
She's
time.
changing just the time to 10:15.
okay, so all we need to do is
Make the motion.
authorize you to send the bids out and advertise.
The other thing we talked about was Morris Associates would like to have the specs available to the contractors, make them available on a flash drive. He said the specs are voluminous. He's got 2 volumes, so it's probably hundreds of pages. So I looked at the general municipal law. I also spoke with the attorney up at the Association of Towns this afternoon. I mean, there's no prohibition in the general municipal law that you can't do that, and some of the other towns and municipalities are going in that direction. So I don't really see a problem, if you do it that way. So, Morris Associates would put all the specs on a flash drive and make the flash drive available, and I guess would just charge the cost of the flash drive to the contractors. He also said that they would submit a certain number of paper copies here to the town hall. So if it were a problem for a contractor, they needed a hard copy, then you can deal with that. You'd have some hard copies here, and they would have to, there's a provision in here that they would have to make a deposit. They have a $50 deposit in the notice to the contractors. Under the general municipal law, you're allowed to charge not in excess of 100. So that would be up to you if you have to provide somebody with a hard copy. If you want to charge 100 as a deposit, and then when they return the specs, they get their money refunded. So that would be up to you. I mean, Pete Morris has the $50 deposit in the notice that he prepared.
Would it be possible for them to put it up on Dropbox?
I don't know. The one thing I did discuss with the Association of Towns Attorneys is that you would want the specs in a protected format, so they would not be able to alter the specs in any way and claim that that's what they got. So, I think Morris could take care of that. So I don't know about putting it up elsewhere. The safest thing may be putting it on the flash drive and having it in a protected format.
The same format could be used on Dropbox.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that
I'm
question.
letting you know. So if that's the only issue, I don't see why we couldn't have it there for distribution as well.
I don't know. I can't answer that question. I mean, I think we'd have to talk to Morris Associates about it and
Well, let's
you
look
know,
into
see
that.
what the protection is.
Then let's find out.
Could Gretchen and Denise both bring their microphones closer? It's hard to hear. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and make a motion to do the bid specs and send them out in whatever? Now, in the motion, do we need to put what format we're going to do them?
Well, you can certainly authorize it to be done that way. I just can't answer the question about Dropbox. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if that can be protected. I don't know anything about it, so I can't answer that question.
We just need to authorize to have the bid specs made available to contractors. And I would think $50, if Morris Associates knows that they can be reproduced for $50, I don't think they would have put in a number that wasn't appropriate for, or you think that they...
I think that they're fine with the 50 on the electronic, format, or it's on flash drive. The question would be if somebody wants the hard copy and it's hundreds of pages, it's a cost to the town, so it's whether you want to try and cover that.
So it's hundreds of pages of
That's what he said. It's
oversized
too,
documents?
well, there are maps involved. I don't know how he would do that in hard copy. I would think that they might be oversized, but he said there's 2 volumes.
So I would think probably $100 is more realistic if it's hundreds of pages of plans and drawings and specs.
I mean, if it's a photocopy, $100 probably won't, actually cover it, but that's the maximum that you can charge under the statute. So,
And Morris Associates would be the ones in charge of putting these out, providing these copies.
yeah,
Yes.
they'd have to put it on the flash drives. Let's see. I'm just looking to see if they had the $50 in here. There, yeah, it is in here. So if you want to up it to $100, you'd have to change that paragraph. It's the 4th paragraph down. I mean, unless if you want to put $50 for, the flash drive and you want to put $100 for a hard copy, you could do it that way.
But that would be changing the notice.
Yes. You'd have to change it.
And the notice just states that there's going to be copies made available, it's not a deposit. They're not getting their money back. They're paying to have the item. And the email talks about the flash drive. And he would make a handful available. And if we needed more, he would do it. We just wanted to try this flash drive.
I think the flash drive sounds reasonable. I don't think any sophisticated company would be needing hard copies necessarily, or they could take the flash drive to somewhere and have it photocopied if they really wanted hard copies, right?
Yeah, and probably that's what they
Probably
did, is the
that's what they
$50 was the cost of the flash drive because they wouldn't be returning it. That's probably what
Making the
Morris did.
copies and putting it on there. So can you read that as it is written? The $50 is for a flash drive,
No, it's for the specs.
for the bid specs to be
Copies of the
provided.
bid specs obtained on or after March 11th from the Office of the Town Clerk, Town of Amenia, Town Hall, 4988 Route 22, Amenia, New York, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m., Monday through Thursday, upon making a payment of $50 for each copy of the specifications. All payments shall be made in the form of a check or money order payable to the Town of Amenia. It's your money.
So we'd need to change that to be available electronically on it, because it just says made copies available, so they're probably going to expect hard copies given that description.
Yeah, you can add that in.
So do we have to change that before we?
You could, yeah,
Put it out
making
to
the
bid.
payment of $50 for each copy of the specifications on flash drive.
This should be also downloadable from the website, wouldn't you think? I mean, there ought to be
That's why the
some other
$50.
options. You can't get it off
A
of,
lot of times when we do bids, we've done other big projects, we've had to remit some type of a fee just to obtain what the
just to get the bid
specifications
specs.
are.
Yeah, okay. I suppose we did that with the rail trail. So you need a motion authorizing Morris Associates to provide bid specs to contractors with a deposit of $50
Right,
electronically
I would say on the flash drive.
on a flash drive. Okay, I would make that motion
And 100 for,
And I maybe want to add in a protected format.
in a protected format. Did everybody get that?
No.
Okay, so I make a motion that we authorize Morris Associates to provide prospective contractors with a copy of the bid specs,
I do that.
with that
You just offer.
Dawn Marie, or that copies of the bid specs are to be made available to prospective bidders on the
heating system
heating
update.
system update for the town hall
And the asbestos removal.
and the asbestos removal at a charge of $50 for a thumb drive to be available here at the town hall. Is that correct?
Sounds good.
Second?
So not available on paper at all then?
I think they could take their thumb drive and go get it produced at their own cost.
And not available as a protected document that they could download but not modify?
I think it's just on a thumb drive as far as we know at this time.
Yeah, that's all I know, is that they offered it on a flash drive. They did not offer it, when I spoke with them, on any other format.
I think thumb drives people can use, right?
His thought process is to limit the number of paper copies and cut down on the reproduction cost.
Of course.
Because a
We don't
lot of
have the
times
staffing, we don't have the equipment, we don't have oversized
He would still
photocopiers
provide me
and
some.
oversized paper.
I'm going to need a hard copy, so he's going to still provide us with some.
Right, but she can't reproduce those in-house, and then she'd have to drive over to wherever to get a photocopy of an
I'm
oversized
just
map.
No.
saying that I believe we should put a copy that they could get from online, so they don't have to come here
To
to
the
get it.
town
They
hall.
can just download it on their own equipment.
Do we have file size limits on the website for hosting files, like PDFs or?
We can get an exception.
What do they normally do, pick up?
They usually do pickup, but if there's a way to do it where if they download it
big deal.
throughout,
No.
the down drop, which would be
Dropbox.
Dropbox, if they do a password where they have to remit the $50 online, it will save the individuals from having to drive all the way from wherever to Amenia. Do it all electronically, have them enter their credit card information online and make the purchase online.
But if they want to do the work, they'll drive all the way
And
to
then-
Amenia.
Yeah.
They ought to at least see where we are if they're going to bid on the work.
Well, if you're putting it out on the Empire BidNet, I thought we would get a larger geographic area that would be bidding. So I wanted to give them opportunity.
Well, you
For
could
jobs.
offer the option
You
for no
could mail
fee
it.
to download it in a protected format online, assuming it can be done at little or no cost to the town, right? So then a out-of-state company could estimate whether or not this is at all feasible for their company,
Or upstate.
Anywhere.
out of the region anywhere.
This is a big project.
So should I amend it then? Is everybody happy with me amending it to offer that option to
To be
be?
100% honest with you, I'm lost. How many
Oh.
bid specs are going out? You added asbestos to it. There was
There's two.
two copies.
There's two bid specs, one for asbestos and one for the whole heating.
All right, then Denise was talking about there's two something, 2 files, one is big, one is not big? Is that the asbestos, or is there 2 parts to the heating system bid?
They have 2 notices to the contractors. One is for the asbestos removal. I don't specifically know how long that one is. I would assume it would be shorter. I think the heating system is the one that's really going to have the
All right,
bulk
now
of
the
it.
heating system
but
is 1 part, or is that 2 parts?
One.
One.
All right, because you said that there was 2 parts, and then the asbestos came up. I just want to make sure the asbestos is one of those 2 parts that we were talking about.
Yes.
So there's 2 bid specs that are getting put out.
Yes.
Yes.
And we just want to decide, they want to put it out on a flash drive
I understand
or
that.
the copy, and I think they should put it out online as well.
So I will amend my motion
Put it
to
online where?
include offering it online in a protected format for free.
Where?
On our website or on another,
Even if it's also just a link to it on our website.
a
so-
link to it, right. A link to it on our website. That's where it will be.
Second that.
But if they require a flash drive, they'll have to pay for it.
Right. I said $50 for a flash drive here at the town hall or for free downloadable from a link on our website.
And paper copy.
No paper copy, they can come in here and see it, but I don't think you should be running around trying to make copies of this thing.
No, and if Morris copies it, they're going to charge you. He was trying to save the town money, because if they make the copies, they'll bill you for
Right,
all
but we'll
of
have a copy here at town hall.
it. At least, I
One
think
paper copy,
there's maybe like 4 he said he was going to give to the
Okay.
town.
Okay. The amended is what we're taking a roll call on. Councilwoman Hitzelberger.
Aye.
Councilman Delango.
Abstain.
Councilman Gutierrez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle.
Yes.
Supervisor Prodi.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Tori, while we're on Morris Associates, do you want to talk about that sidewalk thing that went around, or no? The plans for the sidewalk going down to Beacon Park?
Not until everybody looks at them.
Has anybody looked at them?
They're available. But
Was-
I think everybody needs to look at them before we discuss them.
Was the version that was emailed around, was that the same copy as the full version that's at the secretary's office, or?
What version?
I believe you sent it earlier
Right.
today.
But I don't know if everybody's looked at it
Okay.
or gone down there and see where it goes. And I think everybody needs to look at it before we have a discussion and make a decision of what we're going to do. Or if that's what we want to do, what the plan is.
No, I just had some comments on it, because the way that the plans were and the way that I went down there, I think it's a little ridiculous putting those sidewalks behind the telephone poles and taking people front lawn and cutting trees down and everything else. The right-of-way that's on the street there is huge. There's no reason why the sidewalk can't be the same that it is through the whole town with the curbs and everything.
It's the expense.
Yeah, but I have a feeling
And the
once you
water
get going
drainage.
into the drainage and the fill,
You're gonna
and
be
you're
in
probably
drainage.
dealing with wetlands down by the park and everything, that you're gonna have to bring fill in to raise these sidewalks up. I don't wanna go, it's a $150,000 grant. How much more is it gonna be over that for sidewalks that are only gonna last for 4 years?
Or if people are even going to use them.
Or if people are even gonna use them. So I kind of disagree with the plan a little bit, but, if everybody wants to look at the plan and actually go down there and take a look where they're looking to put these sidewalks,
Yeah,
then we'll discuss it a little further.
yeah, that's what everybody needs to do.
I actually had a question, because I was thinking the same thing, but I wasn't just a rookie question. How much roughly were the curb cuts that were going to be needed if, I mean, I know DOT, from what I read, they were asking for a lot, but how, anybody recall roughly how much that was?
No,
If-
you can send an email to Pete Sotero and ask him.
Okay.
There was never price put
It
out.
wasn't-
that
yeah, I
Because
haven't
that's
seen
the
a
reason that
price,
the
but there
sidewalk
might have
goes
been.
all the way behind the trees.
Well,
or the
yeah, the
poles.
problem is DOT, if the sidewalk is close to the road, they want the curb,
Right.
just like it is on 343 and everything else. So I'm guessing what the engineer was thinking, well, let's do away with the curb, let's move the sidewalk back. But I didn't see a cost analysis what the difference in the cost is.
Yeah, and that's what we need to see before we go any further with this.
Okay.
That's why I wanted everybody to see not only the plan and to walk it. Okay, Welsh sanitation.
Okay, Jim Constantino, who's the attorney for Welsh. It's actually Valley 82 Holding Corporation, doing business as Welsh Sanitation. He is going to prepare a short extension agreement to the prior contract. I did not get it as of today. So he'll be sending that over. Welsh has agreed to the 2 days per week for the transfer station,
The Wednesday and Saturday.
the Wednesday and Saturday at the hours that the town requested. Under the original contract, which goes back to 2012, they are required to produce certain certificates of insurance in specific amounts. The certificates that they've sent over have some deficiencies. They don't have the town named as an additional insured, so that has to be added. And I spoke with Byron Barnes about this today. He has spoken with their agent, Marshall and Sterling, so they've agreed they're going to make the changes. We don't have them as of yet, but they'll be sending them over. So they'll add the town as additional insured. The umbrella coverage, along with the excess that they have, meets the contract requirements. They also have to add the provision that that policy is primary and non-contributory to the town's policy. So if there's an issue of liability, that policy, comes first. They also have to add the address of the licensed premises. They don't have that on there. There's also a correction on the workers' comp certificate. Their dates were conflicting between the certificate of insurance and the
So they're going to fix
the actual
that.
certificate. They're going to fix that one. I think that's it.
Actually, and then we have to make a decision if we want the contract to be 5 years.
Or you want to do individual one-year extensions.
So that
If
is-
we do a 5-year extension, would we be able to adjust hours during the course of the 5 years, or is it going to be always Wednesday and Saturday?
Well, if you sign the extension agreement based upon the 2 days per week at those hours, that's what you're going to have for the 5 years. I mean, it might
No, I
be a
mean, that
benefit
was-
to you. If you do 1 year, they could come back and say, we don't want to do the 2 days, the following year. So it may benefit you.
Well, I think the current charges they have in there would be locked in for 5 years too, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think.
Because I don't think,
Very reasonable, $10 for an annual permit is,
Yeah.
a very reasonable price. I think they even have a seniors option to that.
So again, I have to see the extension agreement and what they have in there. The initial, paperwork that they sent over, they have, your annual fees. So it'll depend
which aren't
what,
changing.
Yeah, if they attach that to the extension agreement or include it in that, then you would have that.
So we just have to wait for that. Do they know when they'll be able to have that to us?
I thought it would come before today, but it didn't, you know.
Okay.
But we need to
See the
decide.
extension agreement first, because
Well-
that'll determine.
No, we'd have to let them know what we want in the extension agreement. Do we want 5 years, or do we do the year to year? I mean, if they're going to send an extension agreement, they're just not going to keep sending us different ones.
Denise, you were expecting, what were you expecting today? A version of both? Or,
No?
No, he was just going to send over the extension agreement. I don't know if he would, you know, have an option to pick. He didn't say. I mean, I told him that we would be discussing it at tonight's meeting, whether you want to do the 5 years or you want to do single year, you know, extensions.
So the extension agreement is an extension of what?
The existing agreement.
The
Of the
existing
existing contract.
The existing
2012.
contract, so,
With the change of the days.
so to me, an extension, so are we going into a new contract for 5 years? Or are we just extending the existing one for 5 years?
No, you would be doing an extension for an additional 5, or
Additional.
you can do it for an additional 1 at a time. You know, if you do the extension for 1 year, you know, they can come back next year and say, we don't want to do the 2 days or whatever. Or they could increase the rates.
What do you guys want to do? 1
Do-
year or 5 year?
do we know for sure they're not going to change the rates
No,
for the extension? We don't know?
It's,
need to read
the
the
rates-
extension.
the rates are in what they sent over.
The rates haven't changed from what they sent over. The only thing the extension is,
Well, we don't know what it is because we haven't seen it.
I mean, if you want them to prepare it with an option, and you'll have to check which one you want to do, cross out the one you don't want to do, I can ask him to prepare it that way.
Seems safe.
but the contract, the extension is, the contract, basically, it's the same contract we have, with only that change.
No, I understand that, which he's telling us that we don't have the contract to read yet, so, I mean, if we're gonna vote on something, I'd rather have the contract in front of us to vote on. You know, I would have him send over the contract extension with the option of 1 year or 5 years, and then, once that comes in, we'll make sure it is what it's supposed to be, and then we'll vote on it.
Okay, and you have to get the corrections done to it anyway.
Yes, there's certificates of insurance, yeah. I expect that they'll be coming.
Okay, so I make a motion to table the Welsh contract to the next meeting.
Second.
Councilman Hinselberger?
Yeah,
You could vote no.
so it's a table, it doesn't require it.
Doesn't even have to take the roll, but Councilman Delango? We usually do.
For a
Yes.
motion, you do?
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Prairie.
Yes. Okay, we received an email about, with another proposal from Mr. Buffalmonte with monitoring wells. I forwarded the email to everyone. You need to decide whether you want to entertain it, and if we do, then we would have to pay Dave Everett to see if, number one, if it's even consistent with our zoning, and number two, how it would affect seeker.
Well, I don't think we would be paying Dave Everett, I think the applicant would be paying Dave Everett.
Okay, you're right. Well, the applicant would, but he would be spending the money, and
Yeah.
we need to decide whether we want to even entertain the proposal.
I would still like to hear back from the building department about whether or not Mr. Bulfamonte's statement that he was selling compost off the site, or his statement to the building department that he was not, which one is it? Is he selling or is he not? I sent an email on the February 24th over to the building department, and I still haven't heard back on that. So before anything else happens, because
But I
the
think Mike-
issue was raised,
This is a different proposal.
doesn't matter to me.
It's whether or not we want
There's an issue on the
to,
property was raised by one of our citizens about it, and I'd like to have that resolved before any other actions.
But Mike did send a letter back and says that they were not selling compost down there. The compost
No,
was
he
being trucked
initially-
in for his home use.
He initially said that they weren't, and then I responded saying, well, he said that to you, but he said this to us, so, which is the truth? And I haven't heard back on that.
Mike sent back and said he wasn't selling the compost. It was actually the compost being used for his own use. And he said that in the email that Mike sent the whole board.
The initial email from the building department, from Mike in the building department, said that Mr. Bulfamonte said that to the building department that he was not selling compost.
Okay.
I responded to that email saying, well, he said to the town board that he was. So which is it? And I have not heard back.
When
don't
did he
believe-
say to the town board that he was?
When he made his presentation at the last meeting,
He said that he was selling compost, or
Yeah.
he was going to sell compost?
that he was.
From that spot?
Yeah. So I just wanted clarification on that issue before anything else was considered, in my opinion, on that property.
Well, Mike was down there and inspected the property, right?
as far as I know.
From what I understand, and I thought the letter was he
I
wasn't
just haven't heard
selling
back from
the
him yet.
compost. That's what triggered that letter, him saying that he was down there, and he told him he could truck in up to 3,000 yards of compost, but Baltamonte agreed to only truck in 1,500 yards of compost to use on the property.
I'm just waiting for clarification back from the building department on it, and I haven't heard back.
Okay,
To add to that.
basically I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just to add to that, there was another notice about some changing state regulations for solid waste facilities.
Right.
Do we have any sense of, I know it's just proposed legislation now, but when it's up for a vote, or I believe public comment is coming up, but I don't know when they're planning on voting on that. I would assume that would change some of the way, or some of the regulations around how this might operate if it were open
Well,
and full scale.
the regulations that came out about that change, it was big regulations on sewer waste, food waste, and mulching facilities that were not directly being regulated by the DEC right now. That was that whole thing from Governor Cuomo. Do I think the things are going to change on this? I don't know. We don't even know what the DEC laws are on this because we didn't let it get to secret. There is a lot more information. Now, the whole thing about this guy putting his wells in and stuff like that, it's his property. If he wants to drill wells and monitor water, that's his gig. Maybe on his own, if he's drilling these wells and everything else, we will really know if the groundwater is 5 feet below the ground or if it's 300 feet below the ground. This is going to make a big difference in this project. So, if this guy wants to go ahead and drill his own wells and monitor his wells for water quality, why is he even asking us?
But that isn't all he wants to do. Now he's interested in proposing a pilot-scale demonstration project for a small-scale composting operation. Is that something, does the town board even want to?
That's not allowed by our zoning, though.
No, it isn't.
When I was doing my research on this, I came up with a bunch of stuff. A lot of towns and a lot of counties, they go into what they call a host agreement. In this host agreement, they put stipulations on what type of testing has to be done, even if it's above and beyond DEC regulations, what type of inspections could be done, and how they're going to report the inspections to the town, the type of material that comes in. It's all put in this host agreement. Now, also in the host agreements, it's stated that for any project, the town could put a monetary value on this. Now, you're talking about you want to generate revenue. On a lot of the host agreements that I read, and I actually got it from the Association of Towns. They were the ones that forwarded me all the host agreements. There's a landfill company up in way upstate or something like that, and this is for instance. In the host agreement, on top of all the regulations, there is a fee. For every ton that this company takes in, the town gets $4 a ton for it. The company takes in 200,000 tons a year. Now, if something like this was to come about with this project, if it goes through SECRA, if it is found not to affect the environment, and that it passes all the rules, could that be something that we could put on a project like this? If he produces 50,000 cubic yards of compost a year, and he has to give the town $1 for every cubic yard that he produces, that's $50,000 a year in revenue for the town.
However, what was pointed out the last time Mr. Buffamonte was here and presenting his proposal is that this is not in our zoning.
I understand that. But if we let it go through the SECRA, and if we find out the environmental impacts, now, are we willing to look at the zoning change again? That's my question.
Are you making that in the form of a motion?
May I ask a quick question for you?
Go ahead.
The scenario you described, I think, is in place, that sort of partnership between a town or a municipality and a private contractor. I believe we do actually have an exception in our zoning code if the compost facility was a municipal facility. Is that correct?
Yes.
Solid waste, yes.
And so, you know, if it was a town-run thing, and then we had a private contractor like whomever, then you could have that sort of profit sharing or you know, production.
Not with the host agreement. The host agreements have nothing to do with a municipality-run system.
They don't.
They're all privately run system, and it doesn't have to be composting. You could have a brick factory. And if you come to an agreement with the company that is running this brick factory, and they decide, okay, in my host agreement, I'm going to give the town 25 cents for every brick that we make. And it could go along with other projects also. It doesn't have to be composting. It doesn't have to be anything. I mean, it's a negotiation with a developer. All right? The developer is coming to these towns, and they're making money. And that's what it comes down to. Now, if you have a host agreement, say the guy comes up and makes baseball bats. You know, every baseball bat that is sold, if there's a host agreement between the developer or the people that are running this baseball bat factory and the town is able to get a revenue off of what he generates, above and beyond the sales tax and the property tax.
But what we're discussing here is composting. And in particular, Mr. Buffamonte's interest in setting up a composting operation, which is not in our zoning. if someone was going to come in making baseball bats, I don't think we have anything in our zoning that says, no, you can't build a factory to build baseball bats. This is something above and beyond just a commercial business.
But our zoning is set in stone. Our zoning laws can't be changed.
Our zoning laws can absolutely be changed,
Okay.
Michael.
And the whole thing with the comprehensive plan, like Sharon said, it was the best one that was written for a small town and this and that and everything else. If you read the first page of that comprehensive plan, it says this plan was put in place for Amenia to prosper. Has it been working so far?
Well, there are other provisions in the comprehensive plan, where they're talking about other things besides that. It's kind of weighing factors of promoting business and promoting, you may have scenic areas or other types of things, protection, like an aquifer.
Yeah.
So you really have to look at the comprehensive plan as a whole,
Okay.
to see what the provisions are in regard to any specific
And our
activity.
town planner did look at this project, and they said it did go with our comprehensive plan.
I haven't seen that. I mean, Dave Everett was working on this.
But I understand, but this is my whole thing. If it would have went through SECRA, we would have seen this information. And we're not seeing it. And I'm not saying this project is good, and I'm not saying this project is bad. But there's a lot of questions that we do not have solid information on. We don't know what the water table is. We don't know what type of rock is underneath there. We don't know how many trucks are going to be on the traffic study. We don't know that. Now, do we have to change the zoning law for this man to go through SECRA?
Well, your zoning law has been implemented to be consistent with the master plan. You have your master plan as the outline of what you want to see in your town, what you don't want to see, and then you have the zoning implemented following the master plan, and it's supposed to be consistent with the master plan. So in your zoning, you have prohibited the solid waste with the exception of a municipally run operation.
Okay.
So there's a prohibition in there at present.
Okay, so
The
does...
problem is that you would need to allow this in all the OC districts. So
Okay.
as far as I know, there are 4 additional properties. None of those other property neighboring owners have come to us and said, we want a composting operation next to us. None of those property owners. You're going to suddenly open up the door to the possibility of composting in 4 different areas in Amenia.
Okay.
And
if
the
it-
pilot project is just the camel's nose under the tent. It is investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into investigating the potential for adding this component to the town. And I think that the town board needs to think long and hard about whether or not that is worth asking and inviting a potential contractor to do that. That's a lot of money that they're going to invest. And for us to turn around and say, you know what, I never intended to add that in the first place. I know that the landowners next to them don't want it, period. They don't want it next to their organic flower farm or their residence or their, what they thought was, was a perfectly nice tree farm or an agricultural use or office commercial. They didn't intend the trucks and things that were associated with an industrial activity with their wells nearby and the aquifer underneath.
But in our
We
OC
didn't
district,
know.
he could put up a 10,000 square foot warehouse
Sure.
to house whatever
OC
you want to
district,
house.
they knew they
So
were
you're gonna-
located
you're
next
gonna
to
have the
OC
trucks?
districts.
You're going to have the contamination. What if he wants to store whatever, hydrogen peroxide?
If it's allowed in
Inside
our
that-
zoning, they
But see, this is
located
what I'm
there, they
saying.
made
But it
investments
isn't.
in their property, they knew what they were getting into. Now you're going to say that we're going to change the zoning,
Yeah.
and if all the neighbors came to us and said, we really want composting added to the opportunities in our neighborhood, then, I'd say, let's look at it. But I haven't heard anybody come up and say, I want this.
But I mean, there are protections in the zoning. I mean, it isn't like anybody can come in there and put up whatever they want. I mean, they have to go through the process,
What
site
does
plan
OC district
approval.
stand for?
They have to go through site
Office
plan
commercial.
approval with the planning board.
What does OC district stand
there's-
for?
Office commercial.
The office commercial.
Okay, and
But
what's
there's-
allowed in office commercial?
Mike, I don't have the whole zoning law in front
Okay.
of me, and I don't have it memorized word for word. But
Okay.
there are provisions in there when you have someone, they have to go to the planning board for the site plan approval. I mean, you've seen what Silo Ridge has to go through.
Okay.
You can't just come in and put up whatever you want. You have to go through the planning board process, and you have to get all of those approvals, and there are criteria that you have to meet, otherwise you're not going to get it.
I understand that. But we can't even let this man get to that point.
That's a board decision.
And this is what I'm saying. I don't think it's fair. And I think there's opportunities that the town is squandering right now. And that's what I honestly think. You got to beg and plead for $1,400 for the dance program. If you think out of the box and we look at these projects, again, I'm not saying this is a good project. I'm not saying this is a bad project. But we have not looked at it.
Water
Victoria
quality
said the
is
same thing before.
not
She's
for sale.
gathering information on the ambulance districts to make an informed decision. All right? Unfortunately, on this project right now, we are not making an informed decision.
We have a lot of information that was provided to the town board. We have hundreds of pages of the EAF, the Environmental Assessment
Okay.
Form, that the applicant himself provided to the town board. We
Okay.
have a ton of information.
And have our engineers looked at that?
We've had Dave Everett took a look at it, we've had outside agencies look at it, and we found it full of holes, full of holes.
Every
It was the
EAF
wrong
is full of
school
holes
district. I'm
as it keeps
sorry,
on
they
going.
should make sure that their Ts and their Is are crossed. That's just an example along the way of where I
You wanna
see
talk about
that I'm
T's
not
and the I's
positive.
crossed? What about that water study from the CAC?
What about it?
The first page had math problems wrong on it.
Well, what are the math problems?
So now we're going to sit here and we're going to, the T's and the I's crossed. And from what I understand about the EAF, that EAF form and that EAF submission changes numerous times throughout the secret process. As everybody looks at that, you have a consultant. Well, I need this looked at, and I need that looked at. An engineer, I need this looked at, I need that looked at. Now that EAF form changes. That EAF form changes constantly throughout the process.
Right, but it'd be nice if they got factual, basic things correct in the first place.
And I agree with you on the factual based things, just like I would like to see factual based things on what is the water table at the property? Where is the aquifer? What type of rock is underneath that ground? That's what I would like to see also,
We
the
did a
factual
whole
stuff.
Map, we are one of an unusual community that did a whole aquifer overlay district provided by Chase and Company. We went together with 6 different towns and said, this water supply is so important to the town of Amenia that we are going to invest in this, and we're going to actually put in laws to make sure that all of us protect it with greater carefulness than just allowing people to develop and draw those zoning maps wherever we want. The aquifer overlay is a part of our zoning law, part of Dover's overlay, and we had it mapped out carefully. We know where the aquifer is. They would do, if we allow this to go forward, we would do greater studies to make sure that the rock that we're getting, they would drill those wells and make sure that they would know exactly what kind of rock and what kind of, water table we've got underneath. But we already know quite a bit about it. We did a whole study on it, and those maps
So
and
now-
information is available at the town hall.
If that change, can an OC zone change to agricultural?
I think agriculture is allowed. That
In
was-
allowed in OZ.
Yeah.
So he's got 68 acres there.
Sure.
If he wanted to plant corn or soybeans or anything like
do
that and use fertilizer to fertilize his crops, he could do all that
You can do that.
with no regulation, no harm to the aquifer.
No more than I think that it's always
See?
been done historically there, and
But
that's
now
what
this
they've
is
got.
the thing. You're looking at a project that you're saying is going to harm your aquifer, and you don't know if that project is going to harm your aquifer. But then we can allow something else, a farm, a pig farm, a cow farm, a hay field, a cornfield that uses pesticides, uses nitrogen to help the crops and uses manure, but we're not worried about that going into our aquifer.
We've had solid waste facilities before, and look where the $1 million Superfund sites
And
are.
look when
Those
those
are
solid-
regulated, permitted, town of Amenia.
Look when those solid
Sharon,
waste sites
Town
were.
of Sharon, we all regulated it, and we ran it, and we operated it, and it's a
And you had
Superfund site,
not
it's
a
$12 million.
quarter of what the DEC regulations
You
are
don't
now.
know what's coming in those trucks and dumping.
You don't
We
have
had
a
8
quarter.
toxic sites in Amenia, 8 toxic sites. When I first
that
came
were
on the
made
town
in
board,
the 50s, 60s, and 70s when there was no regulation of anything.
Roger Akeley came in with me when I became on the town board. He was then Commissioner of Dutchess County Planning and Development. He came to Amenia, he drove me around, and he said, "You have 8 toxic sites here. I just want you to let you know that you have a history of serious
Okay.
dumping in Amenia."
So when was the last toxic site in Amenia?
We have had C&D, I don't know when the last one was, but the cleanup has been ongoing. Laura Sarni's has been going on, the one here in
And when was all that
Amenia.
stuff dumped there?
That was all done right up until, I believe, Pete Bavis's time. I don't know what that time period was, but it was probably 15 years ago? 1972?
72. It's a little more than 15
72?
years ago. Because I've been here since '93 and I have not seen a C&D dump, any kind of landfill or anything like that. So my whole thing is, and I understand that ruined portions of land. But back in that time, there was not the Environmental Protection Agency. There was not all these agencies that were controlling and monitoring. People loaded stuff in a dump truck, brought it up into the country because no one was here, dumped it and left. And that's what it comes down to. Now, all this stuff is regulated. GE has PCBs. They need a chain. Where did it go? Where did it end up? How did it go that way? The regulations now are so much more than back then.
If they want to apply, they can apply as many times as they want. They have to reapply to the town board. We're discussing an email with a proposition, and we don't have the new exact example of what it is that they're proposing, a pilot project. If they want to reply, they can reply every day of the year. They can come in with a new proposal, but we're looking at what are you voting on? I mean, what do you want to do? They have to reapply. They can reply as many times as they want.
That's fine. So now if they reapply with an EAF that's bulletproof, would you consider it?
I don't think so.
There's no such thing as a bulletproof EAF.
Thank you. That's what she just asked me. She wanted an EAF with her
No,
eyes
no, an
dotted and her T's
application.
crossed.
An application with the description of what it is he's proposing.
Okay, since there is no solid proposal before us,
I'd like to make a motion that we notify Dave Everett that the board is not proceeding on this email as we have no proposal to proceed with.
I second.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Yes. Aye.
Councilman Delango?
No.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes?
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
So now while we're still on this subject, can the board give me an answer? If this man comes before us, are we willing to look at facts?
Absolutely.
So if he wants to gather all his water reports, his hydrologist reports and stuff like that, are we willing to look at them? Or are we just going to ignore it like this email?
This is an email, not a proposal.
Okay.
We don't have a proposal.
I
This is just
understand
an
that.
email saying this is what he wants to do.
There are a couple of discrepancies just between what we discussed and what was actually in the email. One was the wells, for example, the monitoring wells. They were proposing in that email groundwater monitoring wells, so shallow, not, not going down to 300 feet to see where the aquifer is and monitor that water. So
If the water table is at 5 feet, you don't have to go down 200 or 300 feet.
True, but given that there's not clarity of information there, it probably makes sense to see a proper proposal. And
No, I understand that, but this is this guy's property. If he wants to go dig 10 test wells and bring us the data of what he found in those test wells,
Sure.
I mean, that's what I'm getting at. I just don't think we're giving this a fair shot, and that's all it comes down to. Like the project, don't like the project, we're not looking at good, hard facts. And that's all it comes down to. We're listening to hearsay, we're listening to studies that were done in 1992, all right? Has technology changed? There's something else with the studies. I don't know. I would just like to see up-to-date information. And if we have questions and we want more studies done, we just ask them. That's what I'm asking. So.
Okay, the parking module by CEI, I believe you're looking at other companies?
We have a vendor who's going to come and visit with Maureen, myself, the court. In following up and doing some research, I found another company, FBS Solutions for Justice Courts, which offers a different parking module. It would be no cost to us. And right away I was like, how can it not cost us anything? You're like, there's always a fee. They would be processing the parking tickets. They would do the whole thing. We wouldn't have return dates to our Tuesday night courts. It would just be kind of a whole new process. And the way that they would be compensated was those that don't pay their parking tickets in the first 30 days, the parking fine doubles. So from $50 it goes to $100, and it goes to $150, and they follow, they go after them, and we would get our $50 and they get parts of the remainder. So
So they get a percentage
they'll get yes,
or a fee?
they'll get a percentage of that, but without having
They keep
seen.
anything over a fine.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's what's going to happen.
So if it's a $50 fine and then with late charges and everything up, they went up to $100, we get our 50, they get their 50.
So and they won't charge us for the parking tickets that we process on our own, and we get compensated right away. They have a whole different timetable. Instead of going out the way that we do the court tickets, usually you go out a month so that people can respond and get them out. He says change the tickets, make it 15 days, and never do your court night. I mean, all these things that he was trying to do to make this just run a little smoother. So I'm going to have that gentleman come, and he's agreed to the March 15th date to meet with the staff, and come to find out Colony uses it, Southeast uses it, and Wappinger. So that gives us time to talk to those courts to see what that staff, how they like it.
Okay, so you can bring us back that information.
Yes. So if you can keep it for the next meeting.
Sure. Other matters, highway garage, I was going to try and send this information out earlier, but I've been in Albany for the last 2 days. We had looked at the Sweeney property right next door to the highway garage, the .693 acres. We had an appraisal done, and a bank appraisal has also been completed. According to the paperwork I've received, the bank is insisting on having a copy of a signed sales agreement, proof from the town that a subdivision has been approved, and a partial release document prepared by an attorney. The appraisal amount was $45,000. The owner is asking a firm asking price of $58,000. We discussed this before. Apparently, the bank is standing firm that they need to have a signed sales agreement and proof that the subdivision has been approved before they will make a decision about whether to release this land from from the mortgage. I just want to see what, I gave the board the information on that. The other thing that I gave you is, I had information sent to me by Dave Everett, Public Land Law 34, his firm knows the real estate people at the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. And he gave me the name of the real estate department person there, so they asked me to send them information about the highway garage. So I sent them a sketch, which I attached here, and try to get an idea of how much land we need on the Wassaic DDSO that could be conveyed to the town at no cost. Apparently, under Public Law Number 34, transfer of unappropriated state lands for mental health, mental retardation, park recreation, playground, reforestation, street or highway purposes. So there is a real possibility that we could get land from Wassaic DDSO to put our highway garage on. They have the information he's looking at to see if this is going to be possible for us. But it sounded like, you know, something good to follow up on. So I gave them all the, what we had for, you know, the highway garage itself, and then Stan did a sketch for me. The only thing with the Sweeney land, with the difference between the $45,000 appraisal and the $58,000 they're asking for, I also attached McKinney's town law about general town improvements. Apparently there would be a problem for us paying a substantial amount more than what the actual appraisal price is. It might be considered, you know, a gift or some other category. So this is where I am so far. As soon as I hear anything more from the real estate people at Wassaic DDSO, it seemed like a good thing to look into, because we certainly need a highway garage. And if we can get land at no cost to the town that is relatively close to our other site, I felt it was, you know, it was worth us looking into. So that's where we are right now. I'm just waiting to hear back, and as soon as I do, I'll just send you whatever information they give me. But I wanted to make sure that we were all in agreement whether or not you want to pursue the Sweeney property any further.
I think it's too small, and the price that they want is too high, or 0.6, is it 0.6 acres?
0.93,
0.9
0.693.
0.693. It's just too small.
And I don't know why they need a copy of the signed sales agreement or proof that we've done the subdivision when there isn't, you know, there is no signed sales agreement, because what we needed to know is whether or not the bank would release. But this particular bank wants this information, or they won't make a decision.
I think the real problem is that it's been appraised at 45,000 and they want 58,000, and if we can't get past that impasse, there's no point in going to the bank.
No, I wouldn't proceed anymore with the Sweeney property.
And I'll let you know what I hear from Wassaic DDSO, because thanks to Dave Everett, you know, we're aware of this law that, you know, may help us get our land for a highway garage. Any other public comment?
Do you have the motion on that already?
To do what?
To no longer pursue the Sweeney property.
Okay, I make a motion for the town of Amenia not to pursue buying the Sweeney property for a highway garage.
Second.
Councilman Hitzelberger?
Aye.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
No.
Councilman Doyle?
Yes.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes. Public comment? Town board comments?
I'd just like to remind everybody once again that the VFW 5444 in Dover, which is Amenia, is having a pancake breakfast this coming Sunday. And really great pancakes, and once again, mimosas, Bloody Marys. It's down right at the Dover line, the VFW right there.
This Sunday.
This Sunday
7:30.
morning. Bring a driver or call a taxi.
I have a letter that I'd like to share, if you're finished, from Jane Geisler, who's from Burbank, New York. She has written it and given me a copy, but the letter is actually to Beth Goldstein, Natural Resources Planner, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, 300 Westgate Center Drive, Hadley, Massachusetts. Subject: National Wildlife Refuge in Eastern Dutchess County, and I believe you and Damien and myself and CAC Chair David Reagan and CAC member Michael Peak went to a talk about the National Wildlife Refuge that was being proposed at a town board meeting in the town of Dover. And they spent 15 minutes outlining what the proposed legislation, it's federal legislation, was about. So those board members were able to ask questions and learn about what this proposal would entail. And I would maybe suggest that we also reach out to that group and invite them to a town board meeting so that we're at least aware of what's going on. Anyway, Jane Geisler writes to Beth Goldstein, dear friends. And so she's written this and CC'd a lot of different towns. I have been exploring Dutchess County since 1949 with a local bird club, and we have spotted rare species. As Trails Chairman of the Mid-Hudson chapter of the Adirondack Mountain Club, I have explored the Taconics, Nature Conservancy areas, local parks. I have led school groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts on nature exploring trips and trail maintaining projects. Since the 60s, I have worked with the New Jersey Trail Conference to get the Appalachian Trail off the roads. Now the National Park Service has preserved a strip through Dutchess County. No eminent domain was used. Now today, the local Appalachian Trail Management Committee, of which I am a member, has been working with local land trusts and conservationists and conservancies, to try and protect endangered species and provide buffer lands for the AT, which is Appalachian Trail, which is constantly threatened with housing developments. Now a wildlife refuge is the perfect neighbor for the trail, which also goes through West Mount multiple use area and Pauling Nature Reserve. Already popular hunting areas. Hikers know how to be compatible with hunters. A wildlife refuge is the perfect solution to protect the cultural and natural resources of Eastern Dutchess. On weekends, hikers and bikers arrive on the train. I observed dozens of people getting off the train at the AT, Appalachian Trail Railroad stop. The local residents also take advantage of completed boardwalk that has offered a learning experience for the handicapped. This is south of us. I would be glad to provide more history and information. My telephone number is 845-677-9909. Sincerely, Jane Geisler. She wrote a little note to me, just to let Amenia know, Jane. She's an avid CAC member from, I think, where's Burbank? Town of Quake? Unionville. Sorry, she's been Unionville for years and years and years. Was the chairman, major hiker, major naturalist, major birder with the Waterman Bird Club. You know, just knows this area like the back of her hand and still hikes today. At any rate, I thought it was an interesting presentation. The Park Service came and said this is by no means a done deal. It's just a proposal that there would be these, was it 6
States.
6 states that offer these national wildlife refuges, and this particular area would be mostly along, you know, it would incorporate Amenia, Dover Plains, northeast, this strip of very rich biodiverse areas. And why they're looking at Amenia in these areas is because there's been a high number of conserved lands already. There's parks and there's rich natural biodiversity, and they're hoping to help protect a particular endangered species, bog turtle being one, but also grassland nesting birds. Basically, they would be looking at what is it called, brushland areas, and trying to maintain the certain type of habitat that is appropriate for this particular group of species that they're trying to protect. They do not have any interest in doing eminent domain. They have a long history of working collaboratively with landowners. Already, the group up on Skiff Mountain have encouraged them to, before they even do this refuge, they've been helping them figure out how to selectively cut trees or maintain trails or something up on their ridgeline to make sure that they're working collaboratively with their objectives. It would give landowners a potential for selling an easement or providing an agreement where the Park Service would maintain this land in a way that would be appropriate. I know of landowners in the Smithfield Valley, for instance, that's worked with the Natural Resource Defense Council to create some projects that have worked out well for the landowner and for the Natural Resource Defense Council, and it hasn't taken land off the tax rolls. If in the case the owner wanted to sell the land, and there was in fact this refuge passes Congress, which is a big, big if, there would be some money set aside for purchasing those easements, but and there would be an opportunity also for it not to come off the tax rolls, that there would be a lesser fee paid, but not no fee. So there's been instances where land has not been taken off of the tax rolls and yet been available to the public. So it was interesting. There were a lot of good questions. I think we all have a lot more questions to ask and find out exactly what the impact would be and the opportunities versus the cons. One thing, like I said at the last meeting, that my husband immediately came up with is that 30% of the land in the proposed area in our area is farmed. And farming in many cases means making hay. In making hay, you have people who want to make first, second, and third cuts to make the most of their investment. And grassland nesting birds interrupt a portion of that time frame. So farming is not always compatible with protection of some of these species that they're interested in protecting. So there are a lot of questions, and I look forward to continuing to provide the public with more information as it becomes available. and Damien also, I guess.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think we should have them in and present, or they also passed around a booklet that we could make available here. They said they would send us a copy. Just to clarify one thing, it's Fish and Wildlife that runs it. It's not the Park Service, so a lot of times Fish and Wildlife, when they manage lands, they work with communities to allow hunting during, especially because of the particular species that they're trying to protect. They actually encourage hunting.
Especially deer, they said.
Deer and
Yeah.
so there was that, and then the management of easements, whether they're working with property owners to maintain, open land that they may have. They offer services beyond just acquiring property and
Right.
holding it. So they specifically went out of their way to say they don't need to own it in order to assist with management. So I thought it was interesting. It was we should see if they'll come by and speak about it.
Yes, I'd be interested in hearing more about if they're so not wanting to use eminent domain, why even have it? Why not just drop that from their takeover of lands for conservation,
It's not in any of their materials that they
Yes, it
say.
is.
So you could ask them directly. But they
Right.
said in all of the other
Absolutely.
national wildlife refuges that they haven't used it.
They haven't used it, so why not just get rid of the option?
I think they,
I'd be interested in hearing that, yeah.
and then I had another letter from, let's see if I can find it. From Ann, lives on Steel Workers Circle. You guys got that as well, Ann Brook. She and Leo Blackman have observed a problem of silt being deposited after heavy rainfalls along the banks of the Wassaic Creek.
Well, part of that was from the dam going out. That made a mess.
They said all of it was from the dam going out.
Yeah, it was from
It's
this-
actually under DEC right now.
Yeah, the DEC's monitoring
I
that,
spoke with
and the
Ann.
engineers.
You spoke to
I
Ann?
spoke to Ann before the meeting.
Okay, and what did she think? That was
I gave her the
compatible with the
information
timeframe?
that I had, and she said she was going to follow up with the DEC, because unfortunately, the dam behind Tamarack broke, and that's where all the silt came from.
And that timing worked?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's still going down.
It's
Okay.
still, yeah, it's
From-
made quite a mess.
I heard there, DEC was actually down in Wassaic checking it out, and they actually tracked it all the way back up to the dam.
Huh,
And they've been working on figuring that out. So she said she was gonna follow up with DEC, and I don't know, it might be worth a call, Vicki, if you wanna do it, or if you want me to do it, I'll find out from DEC.
see what happens for trying to keep that from happening again? Is that the idea?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Well, a valve broke, I
they
think.
didn't plan on the dam
No.
breaking, and you emptied out a huge lake.
They
that's-
didn't empty it out on purpose,
know.
a valve broke.
And it really washed down for a while, and the silt, was still upstream and everything else, and it just flowed downstream.
It's a mess.
That'd be great if you could follow up with the DEC, Mike.
Sweet.
Did we have a Fountain Square meeting on March 15th at 5:30 at Town Hall? If you want to come and help try and figure out ways to make improvements to our center of town, certainly before.
When is it, Vicki?
It's on the 15th at 5:30 here at Town Hall. And I would also propose that we set a cleanup day, because it is a wreck along our roads. The trash is extremely visible at this time of year. And I think, if we piggyback again, I hate to do that, but, without permission, but the ball field cleanup is on the 16th of April at 10 a.m. And if we just, all of us took our neighborhood, what are there, 5, 6 of us up here? If each of us took our roads and led a cleanup, or, you live right here in town, Gretchen, if you could, offer
Well,
garbage
Wassaic
bags? and-
Industries will help us with that, too.
Wassaic Industries, you mean?
That's who we met with.
Oh, right. They definitely will help.
They've actually been doing the roads.
Okay.
Stan has been telling them, directing them. They did Randall Road, they've done separate road. They've been,
Yellow City, they were going to do?
yeah, they did that, but he's been directing them where most of the trash is. The volunteer group I spoke about before from the DDSO, the ARC place up on Route 22, they actually have been, they wanted to volunteer in the town, so they've actually been working, cleaning up the roads, cleaning up the trash on several roads. They cleaned up several bags of trash on Randall Road alone. I know.
So I would propose that we, I guess we could start, at Fountain Square at 10 o'clock, and there'll be people at the ball field already doing their own cleanup for the rec session, but we can fan out and try and make sure that we know what Wassaic Industry has already done, so we don't deploy there.
Well, you have their numbers.
Yep,
I
and I can call them
Call them and ask them.
and make sure.
Or we can, on that day, I mean, when we're
Use
going to
them
do
as well.
cleanup. Yeah, just deploy them somewhere, just tell them where to go and they'll go and do it.
Okay, so on the 16th, Saturday, the 16th at 10 o'clock here at the town, at the Fountain Square, you can pick up gloves and trash bags and just let me know where you're headed, and we can organize getting bags or large items that are left by the side of the road. We'll have a pickup and we'll go around and pick those up. My cell phone, if you need to be in coordination with me, is 845-489-7826. That's all I have.
Motion to adjourn?
No, I'm not ready yet.
Oh, okay.
All right. Again, I mean, I don't mean to beat a dead horse. What I do urge is, we're here to make decisions. We're here to make decisions that make the town of Amenia better. I understand you can't make everybody happy, and I do understand that. One thing at the last meeting, there was a lot of angry residents getting up, and if you don't vote my way on this, I'm not voting for you. Well, that's their prerogative. But unfortunately, that cannot sway our decisions on how we run the town, okay? That was an empty threat, or it could not be an empty threat. It is what it is. We're put up here to make the tough decisions. And for us to make the tough decisions, I do believe we should look at all information. Just like we're looking at a refuge. We're going to have a company come in, tell us the pros, tell us the cons. The same thing goes for these projects. And I'm not only talking about the Voltamonte project. I think that's the tip of the iceberg. All right? If we don't look at different ways of running this town, the town is going to shrivel up into nothing. All right? We don't have the economically base that we need for people to live and work and strive in this town. We have a hard time paying for an ambulance district. What's going to happen when the fire district goes that way? Us as a board, we have to keep an open mind to opportunities. And I am not saying sell out to the highest bidder. At least look at the information, make informed decisions, and give something a chance that we're not used to doing that way. Let's think out of the box a little bit. I don't know about you guys. I'm in this town for the long haul. I want my kids to be here, to come over and visit me and everything. But unfortunately, the way that we're heading, the jobs are not going to be here. The school districts aren't going to need what we need right now. Come on. The Romans had infrastructure. The town of Amenia doesn't even have a sewer system. Let's get with the times and let's try to think out of the box and work together to see how we could help the town flourish. So, that's all I got to say.
I have one more thought, and did you have more to say, Damien? I did have a question from Tonya. Shomatov asked if the town board still wanted the proposed rain barrel at the edge of the back of the town hall auditorium, between the kitchen and the auditorium. There's the area that now has been proposed for the silo for the pellets, for the new furnace, one of the new
Well,
boilers.
the issue for the rain garden being there was to protect the wetlands.
Right.
So if the silo's there or not, I still feel that the wetlands are gonna
Well, we
have to
need,
get protected.
the rain barrel taking the water off the roof was to try and provide water
For
for
the,
watering the plants around the
rain
perimeter. Yeah. So the question is can we get a copy of those plans so that we can see, or can the engineer see if we could coexist with a cistern large enough to collect all the water that comes off of this giant roof? And how to calculate that and how to get that, into...
Yeah, but didn't they had a plan for something else besides catching the water. It was supposed to be made another garden or something like that.
we did a rain garden. It's there.
We did the raid garden behind the playground, but then there was supposed to be something that came out by the pipes that came out from underneath the driveway. There was supposed to be some other kind
Along
of
the
garden there or something
fence line,
to
right?
collect that water.
To help with that.
Yeah,
So
right where
this-
it came down the thing.
Right.
You gotta talk to that Mike
Jaskinsky.
Strinsky. He had everything planned out there.
Right, I asked for a copy of the grant so that I would have some tangible,
Yeah.
budget
From
and...
what I
all of
understood,
that.
it was the plants behind the playground, and then there was supposed to be some other kind of garden catching the water that was coming off the roof.
Well, that's what the plants are, the rain garden.
They're right in line.
Yeah, but I think there's another piece in there. That was just to do what was disturbed from the
Well,
old
it was
playground.
stormwater management for the whole 6-acre parcel. So they've done the one that would, be in line of the main water coming off, but we were then going to catch that water off of the thing
Well,
and
just double
create...
check, because I think there's one more garden that's supposed to be going in, down at the bottom of that little ravine.
Yeah, but that's a separate issue. What I'm asking
But I think
is,
that
do
was...
we still want a rain barrel or cistern catching the water off of the roof and allowing us to then water the plants in a drier season, such as the plantings around the perimeter?
Well, why don't we just put Tanya in touch with Pete Sotero, and he can talk to her about it.
Okay,
And then he can answer all her questions.
okay.
I just thought if we had a garden there, the water's gonna be coming off the roof to feed that garden. And now if you stop the water from coming off the roof by catching it in a rain barrel, you don't need that garden anymore.
Well, that
There's a
wasn't,
couple barrels, that way when Tanya and them come to get it, they don't need us
I
to
think
turn
that
the
was
water
just
on.
to help
Or
water the
They
garden.
get
Unlock the
kids and
basement and all
everybody,
that,
yeah.
right.
That's
It's more
there's supposed to be a couple
accessible,
around.
it's kind of
Okay,
a-
I'll put the two people in touch who need to discuss this
Okay.
and figure it out.
Great.
So I just wanted to remind people one more time that the VFW Auxiliary Breakfast is Sunday, 7 to 11 at VFW Post 5444, and I found the address 3422 Route 22. So please show up and support our veterans. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
Okay, 103. All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed?